Welcome back to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the effects of President Trump's tariffs on the real estate market. Okay, here's the thing. Normally, when we have political or external things that we don't control, I say just ignore it. But in this case, there are some things that you can see in the marketplace today that these are affecting in our real estate market. So first off, bar none, the number one thing that is already evident, we see it in our seven-figure flipping mastermind community with our flippers who are doing, 40 or 50 or 100 flips in a year, and they're spending millions of dollars on construction costs. That's material and labor. And the tariffs, even before they were put in place, were already affecting the cost of construction. So the cost was going up. People were saying things that would normally cost $2,000, they were pricing them at $6,000 in anticipation. So construction cost is number one. Number two is the mortgage rates. What are going to happen with mortgage rates if we start to see an economic impact from tariffs being put on exports and imports and everything else as a way to collect more money for the United States government? Well, it could go one of two ways if we're being honest. Way number one is, and we just saw this with the Fed Chair Powell, they're going to be a little resistant to making too many changes to the Fed fund rate as they want to see the whole economic picture and make the best decision possible. So instead of maybe lowering a quarter of a point, they may just stay the same. Now, if the tariffs start to have other economic impacts and we start to have more recessionary types of things happening, the tool for coming out of a recession, one of them at least, is to pull those rates down. So it could either keep us stalled or potentially even cause other worse economic conditions, which will cause the rates to go down, which could make mortgage rates go up. So the Fed fund rate is separate from mortgage rates, but there is a corollary there. It does have an impact. So that could happen. Okay, market volatility and uncertainty. Man, this is probably the biggest issue because real estate is a people business. Of course, all the economists and all the different things that are happening affect what happens in the real estate market. But the number one thing that affects the real estate market is the people. If the people do not feel comfortable spending money and making a big purchase like a house because they feel like they're going to be at risk of losing their jobs or something like that, it's going to stall the real estate market. So the market volatility and uncertainty is number three. That is a big effect. Number four is supply chain disruption, which ties back to number one. Number one being increased construction cost. You might also see things being delayed, cabinetry, flooring, things coming from overseas. If you remember back to 2020 in the pandemic, you couldn't get windows for like 6 months at a time. And it was really problematic for house flippers. You either had to sell it without new windows and just kind of price it in and talk about that in your listing, or you had to wait months and months and months and rack up holding costs. So that was a really, really big problem. Okay, the last two. So number five is regional economic impacts. In this one, there are certain industries. Now, we all know real estate is super local, and the tariffs are on metals and minerals and different things. I'll give you an example from 2008 when the housing market crashed. That wasn't the only, the subprime loans in the housing market wasn't the only thing that was problematic. The other thing that was problematic was the auto industry. So when the auto industry went upside down in 2008, it completely crushed Southeast Michigan and a lot of the state of Michigan and some parts of Ohio and other places that were big in production of cars. If you were Ford or Chevrolet or any of the big companies, those folks were getting crushed. So since real estate's regional, it's very local. If you start to see maybe the Rust Belt not be able to get the materials that they need on time, or the prices go up. It could have a localized economic impact. And that's going to be a problem for certain folks. So something definitely to keep an eye on. Okay. The last one is the opportunities for domestic producers. Okay. Think about this. If the whole point of this is to collect money from other countries, but when you look at it, it's really not that much of an opportunity. It's not as big of an opportunity as some other things. The other agenda from the current sitting president, who has come forward and said America first, bring the jobs back in house, yada, 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 is they want to have things localized. So if he is correct and things go as he wants them to, that means we would start producing things in America, and we could potentially be producing things locally. That could be helpful to us, actually. However, that doesn't get turned on overnight. It could take a lot longer than we would want it to take. So in the meantime, we would still have the disruption. Okay, that covers it. Those are my top 6 things on the effects of the current administration's tariffs that they're putting on imports and exports, and how it could affect your real estate market, and what you should do to keep an eye on it. Okay, here's the other thing. You guys know this. 7-Figure Flipping is an amazing community. If you're not plugged into a real estate community, whether it's ours or any community, it is a complete game changer. There is nothing worse than being an entrepreneur and being by yourself. It's already a lonely enough job to be an entrepreneur, if you will. Maybe not a job, but it's a lonely enough road to travel. And honestly, like, you just need sometimes to get around other people doing what you're doing, just to know that you're on the right track. So I would encourage all of you to get plugged in to a community on your path to financial freedom through real estate. If you're buying rentals, flipping houses, wholesaling houses, doing direct to seller marketing, dialing your systems or processes, or trying to scale, you should at least reach out to us and see if we're a good fit for you guys. There's lots of good enough groups out there. We've been doing this for 10 years. And if we're a good fit for you, reach out to us. You can send us an email, or you can click the link below and get plugged in that way. So if you want to send us an email at info@7figureflipping.com. We'll see if we're a good fit. And if we are, cool. If not, no big deal. Hopefully you find a community that you can thrive in. All right. Thanks for listening.